Welcome, everyone. Rita and I wanted to put together something for people to connect, because one thing that has happened, her and I, we talk all the time. And I was like, wow, I'm getting a lot of requests to start a study club, not just speak at a study club, but how do I start one? Like, could you come and speak? But hey, we don't even have it in place. And can you give us some tips? And it was so much fun doing that. And Rita's had the same experience. And so we thought, you know what, why don't we do this, record it, and let people, kind of absorb it on their own time and realize that we're a resource for you guys. So if you don't know, my name is Teresa Duncan. I've been speaking for a gazillion years on insurance and management. Rita, who you'll hear from, she is my social media go-to, really good with marketing and referrals. And we're both, she's been speaking a long time too. She has a deep knowledge of study clubs because she has started one and also has spoken for many of them. And so together, what we were thinking is we would give you, if we were going to start a study club, here's what we would do and look out for. And we also at the end want to give you what we call tales from the road, because we not only have seen amazing study clubs, but we've also seen some real like crash and burn type organizations. And we want to share those lessons with you so that you don't have to worry about it. Like my podcast, nobody told me that. Like, I don't want you to ever be in that position where you're like, well, I didn't know that was going to happen. Lots of crazy stuff can happen, but if we can help you avoid it, that's our goal. So Rita, you want to say hi real quick before I just jump into everything?
Yeah, hi everybody. Nice to meet you. If you wanted to pop into the chat and just let us know where you're dialing in from, zooming in from, I should say. We don't dial anymore, whatever. Where you're coming in, driving in from, don't worry about it, Justin. You're on the wheel. It'd be fun to see where everybody's coming
So what I would
in
like to
from.
do is, and I see some more people are trickling in. Don't worry about like
Jacksonville,
trying to screenshot and all that. We're going to
Jersey.
send the recording to you. But we put together, Rita and I put together, I think it's like 28-page handout with just a whole bunch of stuff. So the first section is like a quick start where you can, like, if you wanted to quickly hit the ground and fill things out, you could do that. And then the rest of it is a little bit more detailed and based on this particular webinar. And the more we talked and the more we prepared for this, Rita and I were like, this sounds like a kit. Like, we really could put something together like a kit. And I think that's probably the next step, because it's not just a one-time exercise. We have a lot of experienced study club members that are on the call today or registered, and they will tell you that it is a lot of work and you need help, right? So what we're going to cover today is your why and your who, and that's all wrapped up together, and planning and logistics, which we hope is going to really help you decide how quickly you want to run it out or roll it out. And also, is this even a possibility for this year, this quarter, next year? Because I know many of you, and you want to make sure that you do it right. And so a lot of planning, right? And then sponsors and speakers, because that is the missing link to a very successful study club. You'll see later that we both consider sponsors to be our partners from a speaker point of view, but also from a meeting planner point of view. And both of us have put on meetings, both of us have spoken at meetings, and both of us have had to have year-long, very sometimes hard to manage relationships with vendors, because we know that they're valuable to our audience, but also they're really valuable in helping the study clubs grow. It's in their best interest to have it, really expand, because if you're successful, they're successful. And that's truly why we see them as partners. But we wanted to go over like why study clubs are sort of resurging in popularity. Obviously, there's a real need, just a human need to connect, but there are so many reasons why we don't connect. And for example, time. We just don't have a lot of time. And when we do have time, it's easier to pull out our phone and go onto these communities, go onto social media. And as much as we love social media, it's a quick fix for a connection. The real connection, the real learning and brain merging type things happen when you're in front of each other and laughing and connecting. But one thing for you to keep in mind as a study club organizer is that there has to be ROI, because what you're doing is asking your attendee to give up family time, to give up office time, production time, and possibly even bringing a team member along. And that will cost money because they're actually giving them compensation for that time. So, is there an actual ROI for them being a part of your study club and for attending? And at first, that's scary because providing ROI, even as a dental office, you just hope that they trust in your talents and your, clinical skills. But if somebody is in a bad mood and has a bad experience, does that reflect on you? It shouldn't, but sometimes it happens. So we have to make sure that when someone says, "Hey, Teresa Study Club, I'm heading over there tonight," someone says, "Oh, yeah, I hear that's really valuable." That's what we want to have the word on the street be. And Rita is really good at helping you design your word on the street. I mean, she's the marketing guru. That's where I kind of go, whoa, you got to talk to her. She knows what she's talking about. So, who is your market? And this is where I want you to spend some time thinking about the possibilities, because what I see are very different study clubs. Traditionally, what we both see is a referring dentist, a specialty office, which is why we called it the blueprint for specialists. And then as all the managers started registering, we were like, ooh, we got to do this. So, referring dentists, that's really the biggest target market that we see. Usually it's a specialty office wanting to bring in somebody because they want all these doctors to come and meet them, and they get some FaceTime. Office managers are there. I mean, we'll talk about that. You have to figure out like where you want to have it. Many specialty offices have two locations. Do you have one for both markets? Are they totally different target markets? I don't know. You would know that. There is also a consideration for insurance. Now, I talk insurance all the time, and this is not going to be an insurance class. But one reason that this comes up a lot is because if you're a specialty dentist and you're trying to get the word out about your practice, one of the biggest obstacles is if you don't participate with a general dentist plan, sometimes you're kind of like, they kind of go with, I don't know. I mean, our patients don't want to go to you and all of that. A specialty office, one of their biggest challenges is if they are out of network saying, it doesn't matter, come to us, we're amazing. But there are offices that I've talked to specialty dentists who are not targeting certain dentists because they are very, very heavy participation and they never send anybody there because of the insurance. So who is it that you want to have attend your study club, because you're spending money on them, right? And the first instinct is to target everyone, like everybody come to my study club. But then you have people just, wanting some free dinner and stuff, and you'll realize who those people are. The other one that I want to bring up is, and I should have changed this, not necessarily to team members, but not business team members, but team members. Is it position specific? We see this a lot. Hygienists are very good about having their local study clubs. There's also, if you're a manager, you might want to have an admin study club. You might want to have just a managers only study club. Beverly Wilburn's on the call. She has a study club dedicated to dental spouses. Like that's a very, very specific market, but it's growing. Specialty specific, pediatrics, endo. I see Linda Davenport's on. She started one of the biggest study clubs in the Nashville area for dental managers. And she saw that niche even before ADOM came around, right? And so she grew it and she targeted that. So is there a group of people? Now, specialists pay attention to this because one of the best targets for you is the business team, because they're the ones who are talking to the patients most of the time and can answer. So a lot of times I'll see the referring dentist, I'll bring up endodontics associates in Texas, in Lubbock and Abilene. I believe it's a Seattle study club, but I'm not quite sure. They actually have two locations, but they have a whole class for just the business managers, and their managers, the endo office managers, are in there talking and explaining their policies and procedures and how they handle patients. And that was just really brilliant. Then there's Mastermind. And if you look at the picture of the ladies here having dinner, this was one of my favorite groups I belonged to. It was a mastermind of dental office managers. And seated next to me towards the end with a huge smile is Julie Dugan, who was a rep for Care Credit. And then she went home to Pennsylvania. And we all miss her very much. Beverly Wilburn, who I mentioned, is in there too. She would take a group of us managers out to dinner on a regular basis, and we would just brainstorm. And it was so good for her. It was so good for Care Credit. It was so good for us. Like we found out what was going on. So for a doctor, you could have a specialty mastermind. Maybe you don't necessarily want general dentists. You want to talk to other endo. Maybe you want to talk to other doctors who are at a certain stage in their practice. They're in growth mode. Or maybe you're more in the veteran side and you're kind of preparing for a transition. You could start a mastermind with that. Many sponsors groups, they are fine with sponsoring little intimate dinners as long as they're there to kind of listen in, or at least they get to say hi in the beginning and then they can scoot out. We love Julie so much. She stayed the whole time. So that was kind of fun. So I'm just saying there's a lot of different people you can market to and a lot of different directions you can take this. But again, you don't have to pick one and stick with that. For example, the endo group that I talked about, you can have one for dentists and then one for the admin. And they also, in their annual event, would have another room for hygienists. So you definitely could, make this what you want. So I'm going to bring in Rita, who's just been waiting patiently while I just gab, gab, gab. She lived this for a long time. So she's got a lot to say. So Rita, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. Welcome to everyone that's joined us and for people listening to the recording. I think some of you may know me from my work and with social media, but before social media, and what really brought my interest initially into social media was my work in relationships. And I really still continue to be so passionate about any type of relationship within dentistry, but I feel like right now our relationships are more important than ever. We are in the midst of a massive technology tsunami called AI. I'm sure you all have heard about that and continue to hear about it all day, every day. And I feel as if with this tsunami of AI, our relationships are going to become even more important. And so, if you have been considering launching a study club, you have a current one, I mean, the timing could not be any better right now for you to be getting involved with a study club, launching it, boosting it, all the things. But my work before social media was spent largely working in a periodontal practice. It was a small perio practice, a startup perio practice in Denver, Colorado. When I started working for the practice, there was one periodontist, and there were about 3 of us team members wearing a lot of different hats. So I sat on the admin team. I was a file clerk, which doesn't even exist anymore now with all of our digital files. I spent about 10 years doing case presentation for big perio and implant cases. But a large part of my career in that practice was not only doing case presentation and treatment coordination, but doing the marketing for the practice. And we had a focus on direct to consumer marketing, of course, but also largely on referrals, which is the low hanging fruit for specialists. And so over the course of my time working with that perio practice, we grew from 1 periodontist to 5 periodontists, from 3 team members to over 20 team members with multiple locations. So a large part of our success really came from building those relationships in the community. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about that to this day is that those relationships that I formed back in the day continue to grow and evolve to where I am today, even in getting to know Teresa and other people in the industry. So we have this great opportunity in front of us with these live events. And our goal for the perio practice was to boost referrals, but not just all referrals. We really scrutinized our data and reports and wanted to make sure we were getting the right referrals. For those of you specialists that are listening, I'm sure you know those referring doctors that send a ton of patients, but none of them are converting. You're not getting case acceptance versus the practices that are sending a few patients and those are converting and you're getting great case acceptance. So that was always in the back of our mind as well. But the dilemma that we faced back in the day was that our periodontists, we would send them on lunches with referring doctors and getting to know other new dentists in the community. And more of the dentists were just declining the invitation. They were like, we'd love to get together, but we're too busy. We actually don't even get a lunch, or we're getting like 20 minutes for lunch, or it just was becoming impossible. And we knew that those relationships require FaceTime. And even as much as I love social media and I love Zoom and all the virtual things, there's a recent study that came out among sales, customer service, and leadership professionals. And they agreed, 95% of them agreed that the face-to-face time is invaluable. You cannot build long-term relationships to the extent that you can with in-person meetings. So again, with all things AI, social media, digital, we still need these face-to-face opportunities. And there's also that opportunity, a win-win for learning with your colleagues. It's that opportunity to build relationships, but when you can learn together, and topics like AI are a perfect example. There's only so much that we're hearing about AI and that we're implementing, but when we talk to other people about it, new technologies that are emerging in the dental practices, changes with insurance, Teresa, I'm sure you would be able to expand on that. But having people that we can have these conversations with and build trust with are really important. So let me share a little bit about what worked because, going from one periodontist and 3 team members to 5 periodontists and over 20 team members, different locations, it doesn't happen overnight. If you've been considering starting a study club, I encourage you to just do it. You've got to get started. Starting small is okay. At one point, when we grew into a different location, we had a facility within the practice where we could accommodate large groups of people. I think, we could probably seat about 60 people or so in this room in our office and hold the events there. But before that, we would have, this was an example of an office manager group. We chose a location, it was kind of a step above the Maggiano's. Maggiano's is yummy and it can be convenient, but if you find a place that's a little bit bougier, office managers are going to make some time and space for that little bit of extra bougie. So keep that in mind. But we would invite office managers to come to this local restaurant. They didn't charge us for the extra space. We just said, we're going to guarantee we're going to have this number of people. We're going to be buying food and drinks for them. And then we would go ahead and use that space at the restaurant for no charge, which was great. And I encourage you to think about arranging those initial events. It's really important to invite your bestie colleagues. You want to have your core group so that no matter what, your bestie is going to be there. Your wingman or wingwoman is going to show up. And worst case scenario, you've got this really tight-knit group that's going to be there. And, you can also, for larger events, if you have catered events, we would sometimes ask some of our team members to stay late and mingle with attendees and say, if people don't show up, y'all are welcome to eat, and kind of hang out and fill some seats. But if we got everyone that RSVP'd or sometimes some surprise people, we would tell the team, you can go ahead and leave now if you want to, so you're fresh for tomorrow. So you can get a backup plan set up there too. So getting started is really key. And like I said, right now is a great time for you to get started with your own study club. So what I've learned, and this is a recent photo of just a local dental consultants group here in Colorado, is that it's really important, especially when you're getting started, to plan an agenda. I think sometimes people think, we're just going to get together and wing it. And invariably, there's going to be some people there that just love to hear themselves talk. Teresa, I know you've been in groups like that sometimes too. And we have to really make sure that we stay structured so that everyone has a chance to be heard. And you want to let people know you're coming and you're taking the time to drive here and taking time out of your busy day. What are you going to walk away with? So you want to make sure that you plan an agenda and you have some boundaries set for allowing everyone to participate in the conversation or to be able to take away some valuable nuggets. And then you want to think about the topics for your study club. So Teresa mentioned a bunch of different themes, whether it's for office managers or for referring dentists. You might have clinical things. You might have different topics that you're focused on, whether it's AI and dentistry or what have you. But think about hot topics. You can poll your attendees and ask them what it is that they're interested in. But it's really important to also look at what other meetings in the area are going to be providing. So you don't want to have too much overlap or duplication. Today, I think the one topic that you can have overlap on is AI because there's so many different aspects of it to fit in different parts of our practice. But think about hot topics. Teresa Duncan is another great one. She's always selling out every room at every meeting that I go to. So
You're too kind. I thought you were going to say when there's one person talking a lot, I thought you're, and then you said my name. I was like, wait, isn't that me? I thought you were going to say it's always Teresa
no.
doing that, but thankfully you went the other direction.
Yeah, that we really have to do that because I think you're going to find that at every meeting where you're like, oh my gosh, when is someone else going to get a chance to talk? So setting up those boundaries. And people value consistency. So if you say you're going to be meeting twice a year or 4 times a year, make that happen. Those, we see that over and over again where you're just kind of sporadically meeting. People are like, I don't know when the next meeting is, it was great. And then it can kind of just fizzle out. So make sure you have that consistency in place. You might even want to plan, for the year ahead, we're going to have, 2 meetings or 4 meetings or what have you. So also important to understand that people are going to RSVP and then not show up. So don't feel bad or be disappointed or discouraged if you have one meeting. It's almost guaranteed that 15% of the people that RSVP for your event aren't going to come simply because of they got a flat tire, they have a sick kid, whatever happened. As I was preparing this slide, I'm like, then there's also that possibility where people show up that did not RSVP. Teresa, that you're like, who are these people?
Oh my
So you
gosh.
want to make sure you have your sign up sheet, you get people's email address, their phone numbers, because you're going to end the event and be like, who were these 5 people that were sitting here? We don't even know who they are.
Well, and I find too that the people who show up without RSVPing, I mean, they're happy to register and they're happy to be there, but it's usually around food events. I see this a lot with dentists who are having restaurant events, and it's a really nice dinner, and people will be like, oh yeah, I just figured I'd stop by. I'm part of the study club. And for some people it's free. And here's the poor coordinator running around like trying to get an extra plate for this because it costs money for them to just pop up. So I do have a poll. We do have a poll for you that we would like you to just take a look at, which is, and let me just go ahead and put this up here. What is the concern that you have with a study club? And if there's others that you don't see on here, put it in the chat. But it seems to be like this is the one, and I see a typo. It should say, I don't want to lose money, not moon. It should be money. So let us know what you think. Yeah, the work involved, while you guys are filling that out, I'll just speak to that. The better study clubs have a good support team. It's really unfortunate when I work with a study club and there's like one person who's running it and she's it. Like she's usually the office manager who's doing everything else. So if you do have a study club, it's nice to have a supporting team, like a board of directors, or just, usually there's a president, vice president, treasurer, or whatever. Have a team. So doctors, if you're going to set up a study club, please resist the urge to just drop it on your managers and say, oh yeah, she can do this. And so, because it's a lot of work, right? So let me go ahead. It looks like everybody's answered, and I'm going to put that up there. Can you see that on your screen, Rita, the study club concerns?
Not yet. I mean, I can see it, but I think it's only because I'm a co-presenter.
It should be on the screen. What the heck? Okay, so I'll just tell you, because for some reason it's not showing up. The recruiting members, 50%, working with sponsors, 29%, finding speakers, same 29%. I don't want to lose money, 43% for sure. So recruiting members and I don't want to lose money. And then unsure of the amount of work involved, definitely that we just spoke on that. But the whole losing money piece, we want to make sure we hammer that home for you, because it is disappointing that you would put, and I see this a lot with my manager study clubs, that I'm very, yeah, I can't believe it doesn't show up there, that I'm very.
It is. Someone said they can see
Oh,
it, Teresa,
good.
so
Okay,
maybe
good,
it's
good.
just me. So hopefully.
Okay. So what is heartbreaking is when they put all their heart and soul into it. And then, after 2 or 3 years, they have like one really good meeting or one, run of really good meetings. And then the last year it kind of slows down. And then there's like the same 6 people showing up. And it's very disheartening for this person. And then they just decide to shut it down. And so it's definitely a lot of work. And if you don't have any ROI for yourself, then how do you justify that? And doctors, the same thing. This can't be something that you just throw money at. There's got to be some ROI. So from a specialty point of view, and I know Rita is very strong on this, like you have to see like how many new people did that bring in, new referring dentists, and then did your referrals from existing referrers, did that increase? Like how is that translating? What are the results with that? And so, yeah, I see some questions in here, and this is good.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
so we'll
good.
we'll definitely talk about that. Yeah, thanks everyone for telling me you could see it. This is good. Rita, do you want to go ahead, and now that we've talked about like the pain points and stuff, I know you want to kind of soothe people about it.
Yes, yeah. And thank you guys for being so open about that. I think we'll be able to address all of these concerns. And like I said, right now is really a prime opportunity for this in-person connection. How are you going to know if you're successful with your meetings? Pretty obvious, but you have repeat attenders. So even if it's just your core group initially, but other people are going to see, wow, I keep missing out on this meeting. And they're seeing that you're getting this core group together, and it's just going to build from there. So you're getting some repeat attenders, you're getting positive feedback, people are taking away good nuggets. But I think one of the biggest benefits that you're going to get, and that I'm speaking about this from that specialty marketing perspective, but also, even if you're somebody did post in the chat, Teresa, we can address that about starting a study club for managers in a smaller community. Those closer relationships are so invaluable. And I mean, I'm a lifer in dentistry. I plan to be in this field as long as it will have me. I just think it's one of the best places that you can work. There's so much opportunity there. But building those closer relationships, whether it's with office managers or your referring dentist, is really invaluable. What I found in the specialty practice was that we get these closer relationships, and you get the office managers then would contact your team and say, hey, we're sending this patient over. Just know, Mr. Smith is kind of snarky, or he might be grumpy appearance, but he's really invested in his health or whatever. They kind of will share the backstory with you, and you start getting these closer relationships where they'll say, so and so came back to us and they were not happy that this happened, or we've heard from a couple of patients now that they've had trouble scheduling, or what have you. And you're not going to get that kind of feedback from people that don't know you very well, or maybe you will, depending on how bold they are. But those close relationships are invaluable because it gives you a chance to kind of hear that real feedback from people that care about you and want you to succeed. And so, of course, this was a big part of us growing that specialty practice. And we were looking for more referrals, but not just any referrals. We wanted better referrals. We wanted to make sure that those referrals that were coming in were high quality. So remember, at these events, if there's something that you want from people, you've got to ask for it during your event. If you need to be so literate to include a slide in your presentation that says, thank you, and please come back for our next meeting and bring a friend. Or if you're wanting referrals from it, you're going to ask them, for example, we had one periodontist that really loved to do gum grafts. So he was a big into subepithelial connective tissue grafts. Another one that really wanted more dental implants. So we gave him a chance to present that, just here's what my passion is, here's what I'm looking for, to make sure referrals are going to the right person. And then we really scrutinized our list too, to make sure that we're not bringing in a lot of people that weren't referring. Not that you don't want everyone to come to your event, but sometimes, we'd have people that were sending a lot of patients that weren't converting. And ultimately, what you want to do is keep, forming those relationships and letting people know what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, and it's funny that you brought up like the people that are referring. I talked to one doctor and he said, yeah, this study club used to be bigger, but what we did was we cut out the C referrers, which are the ones who would refer their pain in the butt clients. And he's like, I don't miss them at all. I'd rather connect more with doctors that I like and are not going to send me these, and I got it. Like, I totally get that. So let's
Yes.
go over and there's some great questions, and we're definitely going to answer them because there's a lot of conversation that we can have just on the questions that I've seen in the chat. So, and if for some reason you log off and we aren't going to answer your question, or we answer your question, but you're not here, I will make sure that you get the section of the recording or the timestamp where we do talk about it. So let's go over some logistics here, because this is where, like, you've made your mind up, you've thought, okay, this is something I want to do, like you feel it in your gut, this is something, this is your next step. But let's make sure that you're aware of everything that goes on there, because as you know, I saw already, like, is this work? It's actually like a side business. I think that's actually, I just read that. That is 100% true. And it is the amount of time tracking down, not just attendees, but speakers, vendors, all of that is, it's really, it could be, I mean, there are people that do meeting, they're meeting professionals, like this is what they do, right? So for you to do this in addition to your home life, your work life, like this, that's why you need help. So logistically, though, you need to think about frequency. More is not always better. And I remember hearing from one office manager, she's like, you know, if we meet every month, and some people will come, some people won't come. And I said, yeah, but you don't really want to feel like it's a rotating door. Like you, or, you know, you want to make it so that every time you hold a meeting, it's a not to miss meeting. Like people have to have it hardwired into their calendar. If you make it optional, they're going to be like, yeah, I'll get it next time. And that's not good for the audience. That's not good for relationships. It's not good for you. Like now you're stressing out. Who the heck is coming to the study club, right? So that's where I really need you to think about, like, how often are you planning on doing this? Monthly, I think, is hard on you. Quarterly, I think, is more manageable. And yet other study clubs will do seasonal where, you know, nobody wants to meet in the summer, so they don't. Nobody wants to meet in December, so they don't. And they'll maybe have two in the beginning of the year, they'll have two main meetings. And then towards the end of the year, around September, October, they'll have another one. So if you're in the Boston area, do you really want to have a study club the same week as Yankee? Not necessarily. So, you know, you don't have to have a set like every fourth Monday or whatever, but do have a good cadence. And I think the best tip around this is, if you have your dates set ahead of time, you want to publish those dates so that people put it in the calendar, like release your dates for the rest of the year so that people, because, you know, we're on a 6-month time period for general dentistry, like 6 months ahead is your recare, right? So, you know, if they want to be there, they need to block that off. So format is something that we never really talked about before because we were always in person, but yet we're seeing a lot more hybrid meetings or webinar only meetings. Remember how I talked about dentists who are at different stages? So you might want to talk to other endodontists who are in their, you know, transition stage where they're looking for a purchaser, they're looking to make their practice more profitable before a sale. That is not going to be in one community. This might be a national thing, right? So you might want to reach out. You might be a member of, you know, for Endo AAE, you might meet people that you know and gotten to know. That could be an informal study club, and then it grows into something else, but it would be webinar only, maybe some in-person meetings just to get together. And I see this at many of the specialty meetings like Perio and AAE and AAPD. You will see little side dinners pop up because these dentists have been in masterminds together. They've been meeting together and it's topical. And so laser dentists, for example, that's a good example. Lots of laser dentists across BioLase was really good at fostering this community of pediatric dentists who use laser, and then they would meet on a regular basis by webinar. Then there's also hybrid. Are you going to have a meeting where you're actually recording it too? And then you're able to, you know, record it, but also live stream it to people who can't be there. That's a lot more tech, but I do see this a lot more. The office managers are doing this a lot more because they want to be able to include people from across the country. And I think that's great too, but just understand tech can be a problem. I was just at a study club where it took a really long time to get the hybrid side of it up. And you could see the attendees in person were like, why are we waiting for these people who are on Zoom? It was kind of like, I felt bad, right? And then also we ran late. I had to cut some stuff because we were going over. Now, continuing education for the possible dental study clubs, dentist study clubs on here, it absolutely matters. Most of your colleagues are going to want CE for any time that they spend outside of their office, and I completely understand. For hygienists, same thing. For dental assistants, same thing. Many of them have certificates that they need CE for to keep up. And so if you are not a CE provider, you will need to partner with either a sponsor who is a CE provider, or you yourself will go pursue accreditation. So there's AGD accreditation and then accreditation through the ADA. The rule of thumb, the conventional wisdom was AGD was easier to get. It's still substantial. Don't get me wrong. I went through the process and it is not easy, but ADA was very hard to get. But ADA has streamlined theirs. I think they were realizing they were losing market share on this. And from what I'm hearing, I haven't looked at it, but from what I'm hearing, the ADA's CE requirements have really loosened up, still stringent, but loosened up. And so you just have to have CE from one of those. And I know that there's the American Association of Dental Boards that also does CE accreditation that's accepted by most states, but you want to double check that. So for simplicity, I would just go with AGD or ADA. But again, you might want to partner. Like if you're working with a dental supply company, most of the time they put on so many classes that they are already CE approved. And so instead of charging them to be a sponsor, perhaps their entry fee is they will handle the CE. So think about that strategically to take something else off of your plate. Now, let's talk about the budget. So this is where you have to be very careful, because this is the slow creep that will kill your study club. I mean, you could lose money on a study club. And if it's marketing, that could be part of your marketing spend, right? Like the cost of the study club is your marketing spend, but still you want ROI. But where I see study clubs spend the most amount of money, and I feel like it's almost like they don't think about doing it any other way, is with the hotel or the space rental. It is very costly. Hotel costs just since COVID have been astronomical. And I've heard from many of the office managers, like instead of doing it at an event space, like they're reaching out to say, if ADEC has a place nearby, if Dentsply has a place nearby, they almost always have seating for like 50 to 80 people. The Nashville group that I was at last year, they had partnered with the local ADEC showroom, and they had a great center, very high tech and everything, held everybody. And I don't think they even had to pay for that. It was great because ADEC's like, hey, bring everybody in so they can see the facility. So there's some win-win there. So do you want to go to a hotel? What's really easy about hotels is that everybody knows where they are and it's easy parking. And sometimes it's just, you could do, if you do multi events, you could get yourself a better deal. The problem I have with hotels is that food and beverage is almost always never allowed to be brought in separately. You have to purchase theirs, and that is where you get it. So I put F&B here because that's like the dreaded. If you talk to anybody who's put on a meeting planner, a meeting at all, F&B will kill your budget, because a lot of times if you don't have enough people there, they charge you anyways. And if you have a big enough study club where there's hotel nights included, that's a whole different level. You can lose money there because if people don't stay at the hotel, you do lose money. So the good thing about having good food and beverage, not just alcohol, but just, I mean, if you do want to do alcohol, I put that in there. It's going to bust the budget. So be careful. You don't have to have a full bar, for 2 hours. You can, but you don't have to. But happy attendees, remember, and I'm not saying drunk attendees, that's not what I'm saying, but full attendees with, they drive home. They're like, oh man, that was an amazing meal. Good times, good laughs, happy attendees come back. And so that's kind of that extra ambiance there. I really had a great time at some of the my favorite type study clubs are when they're at Italian restaurants. I hate to say it, but I just love that kind of food. And it's always so festive and people are so happy because the food is so good. But I also like the real regional flair meeting. So I'll just talk about the Nashville meeting again that I was at. They had like fried chicken, they had barbecue, they had local beers there. It was catered by a local company, the DC Dental Society. I did something for them and they had local food, a couple different places from local restaurants. And that was just really cool. So I thought that was really fun. I think the worst type of study club to go to is when you just kind of go to a room and they've got like bags of chips and things like that. Like that, I think sends a message. So you don't need to get bougie, but you definitely don't want to do like Dollar Tree type stuff, right? So
Taco Bell,
right, yeah, like don't like no big taco boxes and stuff. All right, so here's where Rita and I can give you a lot of insight too, and we're happy to answer questions, after everything. But what's really going to draw them is the educational content. I mean, it's the whole what's in it for me. So you either find a good speaker that is well known or the topic is really good, right? Then also you need to figure out like what is your budget for this speaker. Local speakers are happy to talk, at a reduced honorarium. It's local. Anytime I can speak locally, my honorarium is reduced because I like to go home to my dogs and my family. But there are speakers that do nothing but go around the country and do, especially clinically, and do 2 or 3 hour study clubs. And they do charge a pretty decent amount because that's their livelihood. However, they are usually sought after and well-known names. So for a clinicians group, bringing in somebody like that would be, a draw. Like I know that there's Stanley Malamet always draws. There's some periodontists. I don't think he does it anymore, but John Suzuki, when he would go out like that, would always like fill the rooms. He's a periodontist, well respected. Tom Viola, yes, definitely. He's so good with pharmaceuticals. Pick something that's going to draw. And social media marketing always is a draw. Leadership is a draw. The pain point, unfortunately, that's been a draw for me is the insurance and the RCM. And so as much as I love that I get calls, the fact is when I go in, it's because people are so like in pain from the topic. So they're like, let's bring in an insurance speaker because we know we'll fill the room. And to be honest, they just hear the words like insurance and managers are like, yes, we need more information. So, that's a slam dunk. And I'm not the only insurance speaker. You will be able to find others. But you do have to plan ahead if you bring in a speaker because their schedule is usually months ahead, sometimes even a year ahead. And you also, if you're a specialty study club, you don't want to bring in like 3 speakers in a row on lasers. There are some offices that don't have lasers. So, for them, they're like, eh. The other one is for managers, like 2 classes on leadership in a row. HR is always a very hot topic, always a hot topic. Managing financials. So vary up the topics. And again, this is why it's a good idea to publish your schedule ahead of time or as soon as you know it. Might even be worth as soon as you book a speaker and get them locked down, send an email to your study club members. Hey, save the date, put it on your social media. There's a whole strategy on that we can talk about it. And I'll just tell you too, and not Rita and I, of course, but some speakers are a pain in the butt to deal with. And I know this from dealing with them. I know this from speaking with them. You will hear, meeting planners or study club owners say, we'll never have them back again. They're amazing, but they were just so painful to work with. And so don't be surprised if you think somebody's amazing and they turn out to be a real hard person to work with. Just you learn your lesson, you realize don't get pushed around by it. Like if you need your stuff by certain date so that you can push it out to your members and they're not replying to you, that hurts you, right? So really keep in the back of your mind who's been good to work with. I wouldn't bring them back every year unless they were absolutely amazing, but every other year you keep in touch with that. And then you've got people on here who are speaking, who have study clubs, like you guys could keep in touch with each other and, who's good for you and who's good for you. And that's really how you get the word out. So we have a couple more things to go through. And then I know that we're getting close to time.
I do think, Teresa, now is a good time to address this question, though. There's quite a few great questions. We're going to try to get to everyone's questions live, but someone was asking what an average speaker cost is for 1 hour of CE. Kind of curious to hear your experience, your opinion, and your viewpoint, because, that is that whole thing, like your presentation is only 1 hour. So how much is your fee for 1 hour versus a whole day?
Yeah, it's tough. So 1 hour webinar, I can give you, the fee, for established speakers. It'll range actually from inexperienced speakers to established. It'll range anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 for a webinar, to a 1 hour webinar, 2 hour webinar. A lot of times I'll do an hour and a half or 2 hours for 2,500. That's not abnormal. So just because you think, that sounds like, but it's not abnormal. For in person, the problem is it's 1 hour for you, but it's a whole day for that speaker. So think about a clinician traveling. That's sometimes 3 days travel, depending on where you are. That clinician is leaving their practice. And so that's why it's good to have sponsors help out. But I know a lot of dentists, clinician speakers who are easily, 6, 8, 10,000, depending on the topic. And that's why it's good to have sponsors who are partners. So I would say try not to speak for live, think in live events on hourly rates for speakers because it's going to vary all across the board. Rita, what do you think? Have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree. I think you're going to talk to 10 different speakers and get 10 different quotes, and every speaker is going to have their different set of requirements. When you say it's just an hour or an hour and a half, for example, I just did a recent event here that was like a 10-minute drive from my house. So I cut my fee in half for them because I was like, I'm delighted to drive for 10 minutes and speak to your group. There are other speakers that are looking for, more visibility with a specific group, or they might want to travel to a specific city. I mean, there are so many different requirements and requests and goals that different speakers have. And, sometimes it can depend on whether or not they do want to kind of donate their time, if they will, to a specific group, and they have room in their heart for office managers in their community. They might be willing to do some sort of a special arrangement with them. So don't hesitate to ask, for different speakers, requirements, but just do be prepared because you're probably going to get a big variety of different quotes.
And go in with your budget, because one of the things you don't want, and this is pretty common, speakers will come back with what's your budget, and you have to have a budget like in mind. So start with what you ideally would want to pay. And then if they go, well, that's not really in my budget, then how can we do that? And that's where sponsors come in. A lot of times your sponsors can help you pick a speaker, take care of the speaker, fly them in, everything. Speaker just shows up and you're like, great. And the sponsor gets a table, right? They can help with CE, they can help with marketing. The other piece with speakers is you want a speaker who's also going to be okay with doing a video to promote you, or to, do sort of a post on their social media to promote you as well. Local speakers or new speakers, let me just address that real quick because we were both new speakers too. When we were new, we had great material. So not all new speakers are like inexperienced. They may have great material, but you are taking a chance on a new speaker. In my billers membership, there's a lot of great ladies in there who want to speak and they're newer to that, but they know their stuff inside out. Would you be able to get them for a pretty decent fee? Sure. But just remember, you're getting somebody who's more, doesn't have as many years on the road as we do. They could blow us out of the water. You're going to have to follow your gut to see if that's somebody that you want to have come talk. So if your budget is really driving the conversation, you do have options. You can go to local speakers, you can take a chance. The banks and accountants, a lot of times they'll come and speak for free because they're getting their stuff out. You just have to be clear. Don't push your sales, like don't be salesy. If a sponsor comes in and helps you, they are expecting a room full of doctors. So anytime you ask a sponsoring partner to pay money to be a part of your study club, there should be ROI for them. So a room full of doctors, a room full of managers, whatever it is you promised, that's why having 6 people show up, 8 people show up, those sponsors are not going to stay with you. They're not. I mean, it's a business decision. Many times the sponsoring partner will want some podium time. I'm not talking like an actual speech, but they should be able to go up and say, hey, nice to see you. We're happy to support, all that kind of stuff. And then they're hoping too that there's no competitors in the room. A lot of times the representative, if they're very outgoing, Ted from Synergy, Samir and Angela from Care Credit, they'll be happy to get up in the room and introduce people and kind of MC. So that's actually kind of fun too. And we do want to give a shout out because Care Credit is supporting this event. And for Rita and I, they have been fantastic sponsors for our programs throughout the years. So
and for dental teams and dental practices, they were one of my biggest cheerleaders working in the practice and helping me with communication and case presentation and all the things. So
yeah.
I
Yeah,
did
definitely.
also want to add, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Teresa,
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just think it's so important. And I feel like we're really antiquated in dentistry with this whole thing of where, for speakers, a lot of times they'll ask if we have sponsors, but they don't want us to mention sponsors. The bigger meetings are notorious for this. And it's like, at some point, I think, we're understanding that we have these sponsors for a reason. They have businesses that they're trying to grow as well. So I think definitely giving them that podium time and the opportunity to meet other people and connect is so important. And to say, just be very transparent and open and say, they're our sponsor. We couldn't be here without them, and not trying to hide that. I feel like we're really stuck in the dark ages with that, with so many meetings saying, I understand you don't want to sell from the stage, but we also want to be just very clear and open about we wouldn't be here without these people that are providing the funds for us to do this.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's a whole huge conversation about the meeting space in general. Like what she touched on is so important. And maybe that's a problem that you'll have down the road, right? Like something like when you get big enough, right? So, one of the questions that I get when I have these exploratory calls and I say, you can get sponsors to help you out with this. And usually it's like, which sponsors? What sponsors? Do you know which sponsors? So, I'm just going to have you look around today in your offices, just walk around and look at all the companies that you deal with. Think about all the sales reps that try to connect with you when you shut down. To be honest, some of those sales reps can be good partners with you. If you're a clinician, go through your inventory. Who are the implant companies that you use? Implant companies, the biologic companies, endo companies have huge budgets for this stuff. They just need to be asked. A lot of times they will bring in their KOLs, and that is a huge budget addition or budget detraction for you because you don't have to worry about that. They a lot of times will handle the speakers. That's been, I think, a game changer for dental study clubs. When that was happening, you would find like these KOLs. So you can ask your implant rep, for example, do you have any KOLs, key opinion leaders who will travel to our study club? A lot of times you don't have to do anything except just make sure that they're checked in the night before and welcome them and all that stuff. You can take a look at your software. What about the company that you use, your practice management system? AI companies, all of the imaging companies are all, their budgets are huge right now for the same thing. They want to get in front of doctors. A lot of times the big meetings don't give them enough face time. Almost every vendor that I've ever worked with will tell you that the study club meetings that are about 50 to 60 people, up to 100, is their sweet spot. They get so much more face time and they're able to really impact their sales. And doctors will buy when they trust the conversations that they're having. And doctors can then use that time to really get in there and ask questions. And that's what the vendors want. So don't be afraid to bring in all the vendors that you use, right? So look around. What about the supply company that you use that services your office? That's a good representation for clinical, but then you've got sponsors for all of it, clinical and admin. You've got, like I said, the PMS companies, the AI companies, your managed service providers, your IT company. Nowadays there's been such a big focus on cybersecurity and HIPAA. A lot of times they will come in and do that, and they're happy to do it for free, usually the managed service providers, because what they're going to do is get in front of a lot of people. Marketing or consulting companies, if you have a local consultant who would like to get in front of your audience, hit them up. So, hey, we are happy to have you sponsor the session. You get a table, you get to meet everyone, get the attendee list. You have to decide if you want to make that public. I do recommend that you do that because the vendors do need some way to reach out, but you have to have a very frank conversation of do not blow up their phones, like respect my people. And I've seen doctors totally just kick sponsors out of their study club because of that. Be very protective of your people. Outsourcing company, third-party billing companies that I work with in my membership, they are all starting to see if local study clubs will give them a table so they can get in front. And then CPAs, always your local CPA, ask your local CPA. Maybe they're up for it. Maybe they know somebody who's up for it. HR companies, banks, financing companies like Care Credit, just look around your office. I think if you just think of it differently, who would want to get in front of people like me? You're going to get yourself a list of companies that I think would be very happy. And then Donna just put a whole bunch of companies in there that would be able to help out with sponsorship. Thanks for that, Donna. And I think that's just really what we need to do is just put our thinking cap on is how are we going to get in front of people like me? So it looks like we are going to run a little bit over. Don't worry, we'll send you the recording, but we still have some very valuable stuff to share with you. Rita, do you want to go with this?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, the benefit of partnering up with a vendor or someone else in the community is that they're oftentimes going to be getting some face time. If it's a local supplier, they're making visits in person to your to your potential attendees, but those personal invites are going to be your highest return on investment. And so one of the most successful things that I would do as a marketing professional on behalf of this perio practice was to, we don't want to be doing those drive-by deliveries. Specialists, a lot of times they'll be getting goodies from the specialty practice, and they're like, oh, look what they just dropped off. And they'll literally say they dropped it off. But what you want to do is, I would always ask for the office manager when I was doing the delivery. And a lot of times they would be available, and I would introduce myself and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that Dr. Jones said that he would love to treat us to lunch. So if you'd be willing to go to lunch with me, we'll pick up the lunch tab, and it gives us a chance to just get to know a little bit more about you and your practice and what your needs are. And you get to get, treated to a lunch. And a lot of times they would say yes. And so, if they're not busy, you can invite them another time. But many times I would get yeses. And then that's when you get that relationship established. And then once they kind of get familiarized with you, get to know you, they're like, okay, maybe we should go to this event. And then that can result in so much benefit for you, not only for your event attendees, but also for your referrals and just growing and establishing those relationships. So do more than just the drive-by deliveries. Make sure that you have some intention with that delivery to either make a face-to-face introduction with them, invite them to lunch, and start growing those relationships that way. So personal invites, whether it's by you or a vendor partner that you're working with, can be extremely effective. We all know that email and social media is a great, easy way to get the word out there about events, but it's not always going to reach everyone. People already have an inbox that's inundated with emails. You can get creative and make sure that your email looks good using Canva or some of these other tools, and making sure that you're including photos of real people. That'll help to get their attention in that email. And then promoting your event on social media can be incredibly beneficial for a specialist, because now sometimes specialists say, well, do our patients want to see that? Are they okay with it? And I think if you word it in the right way, they're going to see you as a sort of a teaching hospital, if you will. So it gives you extra credibility that you're educating dentists and doctors in your community and other dental professionals. So it really kind of elevates your position in the community. So you definitely want to take advantage of that to not only promote your events, but also to, help to elevate your perception in the community as well. And then take some time to think outside of the box. Those unexpected surprises can really delight people and have an impact on your marketing efforts. So rather than just, dropping off some donuts or some random treat, you can really take a little bit of time to think about what it is that you're going to be delivering with whatever your intention is. So if it is to get attendees at your study club, you could do, for example, like a big box with a variety of different herbal teas and have a message, we're steeping in wisdom. Or maybe a box of different types of cookies, something about smart cookies, attending our study club, or popping some, grand ideas, popping some big ideas, dropping off, popcorn. I always used to like to take gifts that the whole team could enjoy. So, I think if you get a little bit of creativity mixed in there, some unexpected ways that you can delight people can make a big impact as well.
Well, the team always knows who gives the best gifts. Like we always loved when the specialist came for Christmas, right? So
Right. They do for sure. And and then oftentimes you get to know them well enough and they're like, come back, come back into our break room and, get to know so and so. And so you want to take that opportunity after your event also to strengthen those relationships. I always love that phrase, the fortune is in your follow-up. It's absolutely true in so many aspects of our dental business. I mentioned email. It's really easy to send a thank you and a save the date through email. But remember, people are already inundated with email. Worst case scenario, it's something that you can do utilizing social media. If you only had 5 people that attended your little study club to start with, it's okay. That message is going to be amplified when you can tag and share and build up some FOMO on, what people missed, so that you can get better attendance at the next meeting. And then encourage your guests to invite their besties. You might even say, we have some special gifts for you. Whenever you bring a friend, we have a gift for both of you. Maybe you're going to enter them into a special drawing for something. It could be a gift or a gift card or something that your sponsor provides. It gives them another opportunity for some visibility. Or, like some of you have mentioned already in the chat, just that access to CE can be really valuable. Another idea you see here in the picture, an event that I did, was the meeting planner gave a copy of my book to all of the attendees. So they're actually leaving with something tangible. Teresa has her books as well. A lot of speakers today have some kind of a tangible that you can give away. And that's something that's lasting that people are going to remember as well.
And you would bargain with them for a bulk price on the book. So don't feel like you have to pay the Amazon price. The speakers will oftentimes give it to you at a cheaper price if you buy a bulk amount of them. So I just wanted to pop that in
Yes.
there.
Yeah, for sure. And we have close relationships with different vendors that want us to partner with them. They'll put a special stuffy into the book. Maybe they'll have a pre-printed bookmark or a flyer or something else. That those tangible items are still really important. I think my next slide touches upon that as well. We're in this digital age where we think everything is, everything needs to be digital, and that's just not true. Those little touches can make a big impression. We had stationary cards that we had that were pre-printed with our practice information, that were a really high quality card where we would write notes to some of the VIPs, attendees or referring doctors, that we really wanted to let them know we appreciated seeing them, new attendees. If you get new attendees at your meeting, invite them to a lunch and just say, hey, now that you had a chance to be here, it was great to meet you in person. When can we do a lunch? And, if you're the office manager, say, that the doctor is going to treat both of you to a lunch. And I don't know about you, Teresa, but we would always appreciate a nice lunch that we could, take the time to go to and spend some time getting to know someone else.
Absolutely. Some of the best relationships I've ever had with my specialty managers when I was a general in practice was when the managers would take me to lunch, and then I learned so much from them. That's how I actually started with medical billing. Was one of the office managers for the OM, for the oral surgeon's office. She was like, yeah, let me just show you how to do it. And then I realized, oh my gosh, this is terrifying. But that's how you learn, right? That's how you learn some
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And then, thinking about the people that are, dedicated to your study club event. This again, I'm speaking about this from a specialty standpoint, but you can start to deliver those tangible items that can really be a big ROI for your practice. One of the things that we did was let our referring offices know which insurance plans that we work with. So we had a pre-printed, just like a postcard size card that we would deliver to the practices saying, here's the plans that we participate with. And the office team was very appreciative of that, the referring office, because they could kind of just keep that in a desk or in a drawer and just pull it out anytime they needed to know which plans that we were working with. Another periodontist created a really beautiful booklet of before and afters for his connective tissue grafts, for his gum grafts. And so the hygienists in the referring offices or the doctors would use that as patient education to show, here's what your recession looks like now. You go see Dr. So-and-so, and this is what your after result could look like. And those booklets were a little bit of an investment, but it was well worth it. Letting practices know when to refer, what type of referral you want, printed notepads. So people do still take notes and use a pen and a pad of paper, so we would have printed notepads that we would provide for our teams. So plants, Teresa, I'm sure you had a bunch of other things too that help strengthen those relationships.
I see mostly now, especially from specialty offices, is the list of insurance companies or even a cheat sheet. One study club, I helped them create a list of conversations on how to say, hey, yes, you should go to this doctor, but they are out of network. And so I gave them some conversation starters that they could then give to the office managers. And that was a big hit. So yeah, you can really have some fun with this for sure.
Yes. Always measuring to make sure that you're getting ROI for your activities.
So I just wanted to give you quickly some wins and some problems that we've seen. So these are our tales from the road because Rita and I are road warriors here. And so and this is Dr. Patel, who's local to me. He has a great oral surgery office and his study clubs are full. This is one that's strictly for admin. And I mean, you can see he packs the room every time because he has really good topics. What I have seen at study clubs is if you have a friend who's a photographer and is wanting to kind of get their business up, maybe have a photographer come in and do headshots or do action shots of the speakers. That's kind of like a value add. I was just at a study club in North Carolina and they brought in somebody to do headshots, and everybody who attended got free headshots. And it was a really nice value add. And it was somebody that was wanting to get their business kickstarted. So it was a win-win for both. Don't forget, though, that you don't have to have a speaker. One of the best times that I enjoyed when I was an attendee was going and being in roundtables where I would talk to people. We would compare notes, we would get to know each other. So this is really good for both admin and clinical. You don't necessarily need, like I said, to have a big speaker come in. If you feel like you're a good moderator, go in and say, we're going to talk about these two topics and then roundtable it, or get everybody together in a circle. It's a good dinner meeting if it's a small intimate group, but don't forget that sometimes people just want to talk. And so when you do have your schedule, I would not be so rigid with it. And that's one of the bad things that I've seen. I remember specifically one doctor had everything regimented down to like the 15-minute mark. And doctors really they almost started talking over the speaker at the end. It wasn't me, I was attending, and the speaker was great, but they wanted to talk. Like this was their time to get together. And a lot of them come straight from work. So the fraternization happens towards the beginning, but also towards the end, which also don't go very late. If study club, it goes over 9 o'clock, you can see people just dying to get out of there. So I would not have your study club go past 8:30 because people will linger and talk, but 8:30 I think would be the max for me. That's just what I've seen work. And then also make it very easy to sign up for the meeting. It's interesting to me that we spend all this time getting it together, but then we don't have a good way to register. Some study clubs in the past would say, call so and so to register. Well, that's a pain, right? So is there an online form that you can do that, have that set up? Don't make it so the person has to call or whatever, because then the doctor's going to forget, or if they tell the office manager, they forget. I mean, that you just want there to be as little friction as possible in that whole piece. And one other tip I want to give you is about pricing. I think it's a really good idea to do a yearly membership. If you're going to do a per event fee, I would make the non-member fee much higher. So I would have a membership fee. When you get to that point where you've got a solid group, a membership fee, and this is not necessarily for specialty, this is more for managers. There'd be one yearly membership fee. And if somebody wants to come a la carte, the cost of that meeting, it should cover your cost to provide. So what is your per person cost? So that's what you're going to know. Is it 40 per person, 45 per person, 75 per person, depending on where you hold it. If it's a specialty study club, a lot of times there is no fee for that because the referring dentist sees it as marketing. However, many do turn it into an official study club. I mean, Seattle Study Club is a good example of that, where you are paying to be a part of a network that is full of education and camaraderie. Is that something in your future? But for the most part, your meetings should not be free. It's easy for people to blow them off because there's really no skin in the game. Really speaking more to managers, you want to have people that are committed to learning, not just people who are just going to come in, eat, and take off, right? So Rita, was there anything that you wanted to share as far as wins and things you've seen that are a mess?
Oh my gosh, I don't, what were we talking about the other day of just pet peeves of, I think, no, probably not.
No, I mean, I mean, you definitely will have unorganized study clubs really show. And I can tell before I even get there as a speaker that this study club is going to have like 10 people because there was no marketing, there was no nothing. Lead time is super important. If you're planning your first meeting, like we're in May right now, I would not plan to have your first meeting until at least August, because you're going to need to wrap your arms around a whole bunch of stuff. There's a lot of time involved, unless you have like a core group of people that are like, we need to meet now. But I would plan it out. So there's a lot for you to do. That's why we gave you the workbook. So
Yeah.
we're going to
Oh,
share
I do have the
recording.
one,
Oh,
Teresa.
go
I
ahead. Go ahead.
remembered now what was the major one, which is I think, if you are serving a meal, if you can at least wait until people get their food to start your speaker, because otherwise you have like the waiters and plates cleaning and glasses. And like, that's probably my biggest pet peeve that I would
Yeah.
say you could
Yeah.
have it any other way.
Yeah. Because people are like, do you want red wine, white wine? And the person's like really just trying to listen to the speaker. And as a speaker, man, that's a pain in the butt too. So here's our information, which obviously a lot of you have because you saw it on the page. And we're going to, go over questions. There's a lot in there. And I know some people have already hopped off, but we can still answer it. So there's our information. And then I think let me grab the chat here and we can kind of go through it a little bit. So a lot of people chiming in. I think that's really awesome. Yeah, and Beverly saying the picks of the smaller meetings, you don't have to do huge. Huge has its own issues, and study clubs are meant to get to know each other. And I think they are going to start off intimate. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Finding sponsors is a huge issue. And like I said, hopefully you can look around and start to realize like who you could partner with. Sherilyn asked a good question. I don't think she's still on. I think she said she had to jump. She was asking, do you find specific days, weeks, times of the day has the best attendance? So in my experience, you should survey this, but I have been surprised to find doctors want to do full day events, especially on Thursdays or Fridays, usually Fridays, but evening events, I've seen it all over. I've seen Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. This past year, 24, I had an awful lot of Tuesday night dinners, which I thought was very strange. And I think that that's just people don't want to go into the weekend or whatever. So I think it's going to be up to your people to tell you. I mean, go ahead and pick it to start and then continually survey. Rita, did you have any ideas on that?
On the days and times. I
Mm-hmm.
think Beverly had a really great suggestion before she hopped off. She shared that just survey your audience too and find out what's going to work best for them. We might find a random time, for example, like our Colorado consultants groups. We've been meeting on Monday mornings because we have a unique schedule where that's usually our time where we can be uninterrupted and block it off. And for doctors it might be they like Friday mornings and then they can go off and do their thing, or office managers might prefer a lunch or an evening. So I think you could also look at just doing a casual survey to find out what works best.
Yeah. And then another question here. I mean, Megan asked a good question. One of my concerns is, it's in a small community. Is it going to be like starting the side business? And so for you, I would not plan on doing a big meeting with, lots like a hotel or anything like that. Reach out and see if your local equipment rep or whomever would sponsor a dinner, the care credit dinner that I spoke of earlier. Like we met, I think it was every other month at this restaurant, and you had to RSVP 3 days ahead of time. So we had a good, reservation list, but they picked up the bill. But I've also been at mastermind groups like that where we've picked up the bill, like each other. We didn't expect, that usually it would be one person that takes care of everything and then everybody would Venmo or whatever. But I don't think it's odd for you to say, hey, I want to get a group of people together for dinners and stuff. And you don't have to announce that it's actually a formal study club. Like just say, I want to get a mastermind group together. And then as it starts to form, then you might find yourself with a study club where you want to give it a little bit more structure. Then you
Yeah.
call it something else, right? So
And or they could check with local specialists too if you're working with a specialty practice. A lot of them have these larger meeting rooms and they might say, hey, we'd love to welcome a group of office managers to
mhm.
meet here. Let us know what time you need the space, and they might be more than happy to let you use their meeting space.
One thing that we're working on here in the Northern Virginia area, the Northern Virginia Dental Society is really big, has lots of meetings, but they hardly ever have anything for admin. And so Malika Azargoon and Beverly and I are all in this area, and we've reached out and said, hey, during the next clinical, can we have a room on the side and just have a meet and greet with the managers? And we're going to see how that gets started. They already have the space, so why not? So we're going to give that a shot. I'm probably going to find one sponsor just to bring in like coffee or something like that, right? And then another question, just office managers or front desk people. I mean, study clubs for doctors, hygienists, and assistants are pretty common. Definitely more managers are getting together. And I think there were a ton of people that answered for that. I think as office managers evolve into more than just people at the front, you have a real group of people who are actively running very successful multi-million dollar businesses. And when you get to a corporate level, you do network, you do mastermind with people. So I feel like you providing that is really just so valuable. Managers who are very business minded love this type of setting, absolutely love it, and they would eat it up. So I think that that would be fantastic. And then Raksha actually says, when you host a speaker, there has to be CE. It brings in the attendees. That's absolutely true. And you could also, bring in for both doctors and managers, you could have a setting where, you have your regular people, but then you have a membership drive where you bring in a bigger name and have sponsors help out. And then that becomes like a big draw. And then you definitely need CE for that.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
can be a big draw, but I don't think it's a requirement because I spent many years when social media was still new and evolving where I did not provide CE, but it was a really hot topic. And I think we would see that with AI right now too. If it's a hot enough topic and people want to learn about it, I think it's just going to show that you have a really strong group also if they're showing up without a CE requirement. So just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. And then, so then the study club, oh, Sherilyn's asking study club in a small community. And they've asked me to start a study club. Of course, everybody wants somebody else to start a study club. So I think we talked about that. Yeah, definitely go to dinner and see how it goes and see who's committed. And you will really see who's loving it and who you vibe with. And that's where you can really make it work. And another thing too is you don't have to, I mean, rural settings. I was working with one office in Kansas and their group of office managers not anywhere near each other. They would, after COVID, everybody was Zooming, right? So they would just Zoom once a quarter and have like a 2-hour session and check in. And I was invited to them. That was a really great way to connect. And you don't have to necessarily worry about that. You could have virtual happy hour, like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, after work, and that, I think those are fun to do. And so, yes, absolutely, Sherilyn, have them, start with the restaurant, but do reach out to the sponsors because you would be surprised how many sponsors are like dinner. Yeah, I can absolutely do that. It's in their budget. Many companies, you should know this, many companies have a marketing budget. And if they can spend that marketing budget on you and there's an ROI, they look like rock stars because it's all about lead generation for them, right? So go ahead and give it a shot. Next time the reps come in, to your office, instead of shooing them away, take them in the back and say, hey, I've got this idea, and then just let them talk. Some of the reps they've done this. This is what they do. So utilize them as this partner. And then Aaron is putting in here, there's a company there, Referral Lab, that probably would be great to reach out to if you're a specialty study club. Thank you for that, Aaron. So I think you've got a lot of great ideas and questions just from the chat. I do hope you all have really enjoyed this. I know I'm having a ball. I would love to talk about this stuff all the time. And then also OSHA, CPR are good attractors. Absolutely. One study club in Georgia I worked with every year. I mean, it wasn't me, thank God. But every year they have the annual compliance event. And so their referring dentist would be able to hit up all their CPR, HIPAA, OSHA, because they had 3 rooms going and all their referring dentists come in. And that was their way to get their whole teams doing it. And it was a huge hit. I could just tell walking into that study club, those dentists knew everybody in that room, even the staff. That's successful. That's what I would call successful. Yeah,
for sure.
Any other questions? I know that we went over and I do appreciate you guys hanging in there. This turned into a 90-minute webinar.
So many great questions.
Yeah.
Thank you for everyone's feedback and interaction.
Yeah. Okay, so we will make sure to notify you when the recording is available. We're going to hit it up on YouTube so you can watch it and share it if you'd like. And then you all have the download, the blueprint workbook. If you did not get it, let us know. But I think on behalf of, all Care Credit too, we want to thank you for attending. Rita, anything that you want to say, Miss Marketing Person?
Oh, just everyone, thank you so much for attending. I hope you got some good value. Please share your feedback with us. Reach out to us if you have questions or feedback, something more that you wished you would have learned, anything more that we can help with, let us
Absolutely.
know.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Go do it.
Take your knowledge to the next level with my dental insurance design and management course. You can grab a $75 courtesy just for watching. Click this link and use the code YouTube at checkout. You'll learn plan designs, all about secondary insurance and coordination of benefits, how to read EOBs, and oh yeah, non-covered services too. Running reports and preparing appeals is also covered. There's plenty to learn, and best of all, it's at your pace. The class will make your insurance life easier, I promise.